Shabbat Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Tazria-Metzora. We are very thankful to the men's clubs that we are going to be hosting Men's Club Shabbat this Shabbat. And for my Dvar Torah, I would like to connect to Israel Independence Day, Yom HaAtzmaut, which we celebrated this week. Happy birthday, Israel. Happy 73rd birthday. I'd like to talk a little bit about Hatikva, the Israel national anthem. How did it become the national anthem, and why did it become so important to the Jewish people? So we should know, in the history of the Jewish people, there was a competition for what would be the Jewish national anthem. We're talking about the late 19th century, and there were several possibilities at the time. Naftali Tzvi Imber, the author of the poem Hatikva, wrote it in the late 19th century, in the late 1880s, early 1890s. He did not write it in Israel. At the time, he was living in Eastern Europe, and he wrote it after the founding of Petach Tikva, the new Israeli development town, and celebration of the success of that. But there were other possibilities. And we should note in particular, one of the reasons why there was such fierce competition is that the leader of the Zionist movement, Theodor Herzl, hated the poem Hatikva and hated Naftali Tzvi Imber in particular. So he had proposed other possible poems. He encouraged contests. At the first Zionist congresses held in the early part of the 20th century, he wanted competitions for other poems. Nothing seemed to resonate with the people. There were other suggestions for a Jewish national anthem. One was Mishmar HaYarden. Interestingly enough, it was a poem also created by Naftali Tzvi Imber, very popular among the pioneers, among the Chalutzim. No one liked the music that it was set to, but the poem was sung for generations by Chalutzim. The chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Kook, also did not like Hatikva because it was not religious enough. It didn't have a religious or spiritual connection to the land of Israel. He wrote his own poem, Ha'emunah, also set to music. For many, it was too religious because they were not religious. The labor Zionists, those who came from a socialist background, who were looking for Israel to be molded in a socialist ethic by working the land, they chose Chaim Nachman Bialik's poem, Tzedekna, in our hands, strengthen our hands, as their suggestion for the Israel national anthem, the Jewish national anthem. At the end of the day, Hatikva won out. It was originally 9 stanzas. It was whittled down to 2, and it mesmerized the Zionist movement. And how do we know that? When the Uganda proposal was made before the Zionist Congress, namely that since Britain and the Ottoman Empire controlled the land of Israel and couldn't create a Jewish state in Israel, the question was, where would we create a Jewish state? There was a proposal to create a Jewish national homeland in Uganda, controlled by the British. The British said that it was theoretically possible. When the heated debate took place at the Zionist Congress, how did the Zionists vote no? They didn't raise their hand and vote no. They sang Hatikva. They sang the poem Hatikva to say, only Israel, not Africa, and not Uganda. Why did Hatikva grab the heart of the Jewish people? I think that there are 3 reasons. Number one, it was popular not only in Israel, but outside of Israel. In the 1890s, A fundraiser by the name of Moshe David Shuv was on a fundraising mission from a hospital in Jerusalem, Shaare Tzedek Hospital, traveling throughout Europe. As part of his presentation, he sang Hatikva. Hatikva was very, very popular among the Zionists living outside the land of Israel. Number two, it had a simple melody. It was a melody that grabbed the heart. It was not only simple, it was singable. It made a difference. The other competitive poems had way more complicated music. And finally, it's actually the words of the poem itself. They grab the hearts. Hatikva reads, as long as in the heart within, a Jewish soul still yearns, and onward towards the confines of the East, an eye still gazes toward Zion. Our hope is not yet lost, the hope of 2,000 years, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. My dear friends, this week we celebrate the 73rd birthday of Israel. Mazel tov, Israel. Mazel tov to us all. And this Friday night, as we sit down at the Shabbat table and we drink our wine and we eat our challah, let us also take a moment to express our love for Israel by singing Hatikva. Shabbat shalom, dear friends. Shabbat shalom.